Hey everyone, welcome back to the Incredible India podcast series. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Sam.
So, imagine for a second that you are staring right into the amber eyes of a wild Bengal tiger.
Oh, wow. Okay. Setting the scene.
Right. But instead of like the frantic idling of 10 diesel jeeps surrounding you, the only sound you hear is the wind moving through the trees.
Honestly, that sounds incredible.
Yeah, no shouting guides on walkie-talkies, no barrage of camera shutters, just you, the silence of an ancient forest, and an apex predator.
Which is so rare these days.
Exactly. And today we are setting out on a mission to uncover what might honestly be the ultimate travel hack for anyone looking to experience the wild, untamed heart of India.
Right. Alongside some of the most complex ancient culture on the planet.
We are unpacking a massive 2,611 square kilometer secret. It's called the Amrabad Tiger Reserve, along with the intensely rich historical region of Hyderabad that sits, right on its doorstep.
Yeah, and we are drawing on some really comprehensive travel materials and itineraries from Five Senses Tours to guide this deep dive today.
Which is super helpful because it really highlights a massive blind spot in global travel.
It really does. I mean,
Yeah.
if you ask a wildlife enthusiast where to go to see tigers in India, they will rattle off the exact same list of heavy hitters, right?
Oh yeah, Ranthambore, Kanha, Corbett, Bandhavgarh.
Exactly. But Amrabad, it is almost never in that conversation.
Which is exactly why we're digging into this for you. We're going to explore how a wilderness the size of a small country has managed to stay entirely off the global tourism radar.
And how that absence of crowds fundamentally changes the biology and behavior of the animals you actually see.
Right. Plus why this specific pristine window of opportunity exists right now. So let's look at the scale first. 2,611 square kilometers.
It's massive.
It is. That makes it one of the 10 largest protected areas in the entire country. Geographically speaking, hiding something larger than the country of Luxembourg just seems impossible.
It does seem impossible, yeah. But to understand how a wilderness that vast stays hidden in plain sight, you have to look at the recent geopolitical history of the region.
Okay, lay it on me.
So Amrabad sits in the Nalgonda and Bandhavgarh districts of Telangana. And it is technically part of an even larger system, the Nagarjunasagar-Srisalam Tiger Reserve Complex.
Which is huge, right?
Yeah, it happens to be the single largest tiger reserve in India by area. But the Amrabad section was only officially carved out and designated in 2014.
Okay, 2014. That year stands out to me because that is the exact same year the state of Telangana was officially formed, right? When it separated from Andhra Pradesh.
Exactly. That political split is the key to this whole mystery.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right, because when a state bifurcates, the newly formed entity, Telangana, in this case, has to build its entire administrative and global branding apparatus from scratch.
Like a startup.
Exactly like a government startup. Building the kind of massive global marketing machinery and, commercial tourism infrastructure that you see around a legendary park like Ranthambore, that takes decades.
So Telangana is just still in its infancy on the international stage.
Right. The heavy commercialization simply hasn't caught up to Amrabad yet.
Okay, but I want to challenge that concept of, lacking commercial infrastructure for a second.
Sure.
Because when you tell a traveler that a place is relatively undeveloped, the immediate assumption is that the experience itself is going to be grueling.
Right, like you're going to be roughing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are we talking about a situation where you are hiking through the brush on your own, sleeping in a tent, and just hoping for the best? Because usually a lack of infrastructure translates to a lack of basic comfort.
Well, it is a very logical concern.
Yeah.
But the irony of Amrabad is that the core necessities for a highly structured safari are fully in place. Yeah. The local forest department has built comfortable accommodations, the safari vehicles are maintained, and the naturalists are incredibly skilled.
Okay, so it's not a survivalist situation.
Not at all. What is missing isn't the essential safari infrastructure. What is missing are the 50 luxury mega resorts clogging the boundary of the park. You just don't have thousands of daily visitors creating traffic jams on the forest tracks. It operates in this rare sweet spot of being professionally managed but commercially obscure.
So you are getting the protection and management of a major tiger reserve, but the atmosphere of an undiscovered frontier?
Precisely.
That is so cool. And that lack of commercial crowding isn't just an aesthetic perk for a traveler who likes peace and quiet, though.
No, absolutely not.
Because if we look at the ecology, the absence of thousands of tourists must profoundly alter the ecosystem dynamics.
Oh, it changes everything about how the animals move and react. The broader complex here supports an estimated 50 to 70 tigers.
Wow, that's a really healthy population.
It is, and they are navigating a very specific type of terrain. Amrabad encompasses the Nallamala Hills, which are part of the Eastern Ghats. We are looking at ancient rock formations, dry deciduous forest, and thorn scrub.
Let's pause on dry deciduous forest for a moment.
Okay.
Because when people hear Indian Tiger Reserve, they often picture the dense, dripping green canopy from the Jungle Book.
Right, the classic rainforest vibe.
Yeah. So what makes a dry deciduous forest different, and how does that actually affect what you see?
Well, a dry deciduous forest is an ecosystem where the trees naturally shed their leaves during the dry season to conserve water.
Oh, so the trees go bare.
Exactly. And for a traveler, this is a massive advantage. Instead of staring into an impenetrable wall of green jungle foliage, the landscape opens up.
The undergrowth thins out.
Yes. Visibility increases dramatically, allowing you to see deep into the forest across the rocky hillsides. And the geography here is bisected by the Krishna River, with the northern boundary formed by the massive Nagarjunasagar Dam.
Which creates an enormous reservoir of water in an otherwise dry landscape.
Right, and that permanent water source becomes an absolute magnet. It attracts staggering concentrations of water birds and draws the mammal populations out into the open.
That makes total sense.
But returning to your point about the crowds, because there is so few visitors navigating this open landscape, you completely bypass the competitive safari culture.
Oh man, the paparazzi zones.
Exactly.
If you go to a famous park and a tiger is spotted, the radios light up and suddenly a dozen jeeps are racing each other through the dust to secure the best viewing angle.
It is chaotic.
It really is. It turns an incredible natural moment into a high-stress traffic jam.
Think about how an apex predator processes a fleet of diesel engines suddenly surrounding it. In heavily visited parks, animals often become either numb to human presence or highly agitated by it.
Right.
But in Amrabad, the encounters are unhurried. When a tiger is located, your vehicle might be the literally only one present.
That is wild.
You watch the animal move, hunt, or rest at its own natural pace, completely unbothered by an audience.
So you aren't just like checking a tiger off a list. You're witnessing true, unstressed baseline behavior.
Exactly.
And that ripple effect must extend to the other predators in the park as well, right?
Oh, definitely. Take the leopard population, for example. Leopards are biologically hardwired to be elusive and secretive.
Yeah, they're ghosts.
Right. In high-traffic parks, the constant noise conditions them to develop extreme human avoidance behaviors. They hear an engine and vanish.
Gone.
But in Amrabad, because they haven't been relentlessly pursued by tourist vehicles, they're considerably less shy.
Wow.
And the same principle applies to the sloth bears. The rocky terrain and caves of the Nallamala Hills provide perfect denning habitats.
Okay, I love sloth bears.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
And because visitor numbers are so low, they haven't been repeatedly startled into a state of extreme wariness. Your encounters with them tend to last much longer because the animal simply doesn't feel threatened by a single, quiet vehicle.
The detail in the sources for this deep dive that really stood out to me, though, involves the wild dogs. The tolls.
Oh, yes. The tolls.
They are notoriously difficult to track down in most Indian parks. But the notes indicate that in Amrabad, you can witness them hunting deer across the open grassland plateau.
Which is phenomenal.
Watching a pack of tolls executing a coordinated hunt across an entirely silent, undisturbed landscape at dawn, I mean, that feels like witnessing something straight out of a premium nature documentary.
The quietness of the forest tracks is the only reason those extensive hunts can be observed without the pack breaking off due to interference.
Ah, because there's no noise to spook the prey or the pack.
Right. And this environment also harbors an incredibly rich bird population, over 250 species.
That's a huge number.
It is. You have the Indian gray hornbill, painted storks, a lesser adjutant. And during the winter months, migrating raptors like the booted eagle and the crested hawk eagle utilize the thermal drafts coming off the hills.
Tracking all of this diverse wildlife in a silent forest has to require a completely different skill set from the guides, though.
It absolutely does.
But they can't just rely on another Jeep radioing and GPS coordinates.
No, they can't. The Forest Department naturalists at Amrabad possess tracking skills born directly from the purity of their environment. They rely heavily on reading fresh pug marks.
And a pug mark is the unique footprint impression an animal leaves in the dirt.
Right, exactly. In a crowded park, A tiger's pug mark is run over by 10 tires within minutes.
Oh, true.
But in Amrabad, a guide can look at the crisp edges of a pug mark in the unbroken dust and tell you exactly how recently the tiger passed.
That is incredible.
They are listening to the subtle alarm calls of langur monkeys and deer without the acoustic interference of distant traffic. It is tracking in its most traditional, uncorrupted form.
Okay, so we have established this vast, isolated wilderness where tigers, sloth bears, and wild dogs are operating without the paparazzi. But here is the logistical hurdle. Typically, reaching a wilderness this pristine requires multiple days of grueling travel, tiny regional flights, and hours on unpaved roads.
Usually, yes.
So how does a traveler actually get there?
That is the final piece of the puzzle that elevates this from a great wildlife spot to a brilliant travel strategy. Amrabad is only about 150 kilometers from Hyderabad.
150 kilometers? That is practically a suburb in terms of travel distances in India.
Exactly. It allows for an incredibly seamless overnight itinerary. You can depart the metropolitan center of Hyderabad in the early morning, be inside the reserve for a deep afternoon safari, stay overnight at the forest boundary, head out for a misty dawn safari the next morning, and be back at your hotel in the city by the afternoon.
Wait, really? So you are transitioning from tracking an ancient apex predator in a silent forest at dawn to standing in one of India's most historic urban centers by dusk.
Yep, it's that close.
And the cultural heritage of Hyderabad is just staggering.
Oh, it's rich.
The travel materials emphasize the Golconda Fort, which was the stronghold of the Qutub Shahi dynasty.
Golconda is globally significant.
Yeah.
It was the epicenter of the world's diamond trade for centuries. The mines in this specific region are the origin point for some of the most famous stones in human history.
Like the Hope Diamond.
Yes, the Hope Diamond and the Kohinoor.
The history of those diamonds changing hands across empires is a saga on its own.
It really is.
But the structural engineering of the fort is what caught my attention in the deep dive.
The acoustics, right.
Yes. The notes detail an acoustic system where a hand clap at the entrance gate can be heard clearly at the royal apartments over a kilometer away.
It's fascinating.
I am struggling with the physics of that. I mean, a kilometer is a massive distance for the sound of a simple hand clap to travel without amplification. How does a medieval stone fortress achieve that?
It is a masterful application of architectural acoustics. The entrance pavilion, known as the Bala Hizar Gate, features a dome constructed with a precise series of intersecting arches. When you stand at the designated acoustic focal point under that dome and clap, the sound waves travel upward and are compressed by the arches.
Almost like a funnel.
Exactly. The entire structure acts like a giant stone parabolic microphone. The compressed sound waves are then channeled up the rocky hill through a series of strategically placed structural amplifiers.
Wait, structural amplifiers like bouncing the sound?
Yep. Essentially bouncing the sound from wall to wall until it reaches the highest point of the citadel. It served as a highly effective medieval security alarm system to alert the royals of arriving guests or, potential sieges.
That is pure architectural genius.
It really is. And moving beyond the fort, you have the deeply atmospheric old city of Hyderabad, anchored by the Charminar, which was built in 1591.
So much history.
The old city's living heritage. You can walk through Lad Bazaar, where merchants have been trading pearls and crafting intricate lacquer bangles continuously for 4 centuries.
400 years of continuous trade.
Yeah. You have the immense Mecca Masjid and the Chowmahala Palace, which was the seat of the Asaf Jahi dynasty, the Nizams of Hyderabad.
It's amazing. And the itinerary also branches out into the broader Telangana region, moving from the Islamic architecture of the Nizams to the ancient Hindu engineering of the Kakatiya dynasty.
Right, which takes us to Ramappa.
Exactly, the Ramappa Temple, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The defining feature of this temple is that it was built on a floating sand foundation and has somehow survived 800 years of earthquakes.
It sounds impossible.
It really does. Logically, building a massive stone monument on sand sounds like a recipe for a structural collapse. Shouldn't the temple just, sink?
You would certainly think so, which is why it was such a revolutionary engineering technique for the 13th century.
How does it work?
So the Kakatiya builders didn't just place blocks on loose beach sand. They dug incredibly deep foundation pits and filled them with a proprietary, highly engineered mixture of sand, granite dust, lime, and jaggery.
Jaggery, like the sugar.
Yes, which is an unrefined cane sugar that acts as an intense binding agent.
Wow, okay. So they essentially built a specialized compacted sandbox.
Precisely. And the physics behind it solve the problem of seismic activity.
How so?
Well, when an earthquake hits, solid bedrock foundations are rigid, right? They can't flex, so the sheer force travels straight up into the building and shatters the stone columns.
Oh, that makes sense.
But the Kakatiya Sand Foundation acts as a seismic shock absorber. When the ground shakes, the compacted sand mixture cushions the tremors, allowing the entire temple to slightly shift, float, and settle without transferring that destructive energy into the carved stone above.
A medieval seismic shock absorber utilizing sugar and sand.
It's brilliant.
That explains why the incredibly intricate basalt carvings on the temple pillars are still perfectly intact after 8 centuries.
Absolutely. And from exploring the Kakatiya dynasty, the materials show how you can thematically extend this journey into the neighboring state of Karnataka to explore the ruins of Hampi.
Hampi shifts the scale entirely.
Oh, completely, is the capital of the Vijayandhra Empire. While it requires an extension to the itinerary because it's further out than Ramappa, it perfectly continues the narrative of how southern India's medieval empires utilized the rocky, dramatic geography to build their capitals.
Right.
In the 1500s, Hampi was one of the largest, richest cities in the entire world. Today, it functions as the world's largest open-air museum.
And it has those famous musical pillars, right?
Yes. It famously features the intricately carved stone chariot and the musical pillars of the Vitala temple, which actually produce different musical notes when struck.
That is just so wild. The sheer volume of architectural history in this region is so dense.
Very dense.
But the culture isn't just locked in stone. The sources highlight living craft traditions as well, specifically the village of Pushampally, which is famous for a technique called double resist ikat silk dyeing.
Yes, Pushampally ikat is stunning.
What exactly does double resist ikat entail for someone watching the artisan's work?
Well, it is an artistic process that requires staggering mathematical precision. In standard weaving, you weave a fabric first and then dye, or print a pattern onto it, right?
Right.
In double ikat, the master craftspeople tie and dye the individual silk threads before they ever touch a loom. They map out complex geometric patterns and dye the raw threads in specific calculated increments.
Wait, so they are essentially trying to print a highly detailed photograph onto thousands of loose strings.
Yes, exactly. And the double aspect means they are doing this to both the vertical threads and the weft, the horizontal threads.
Oh my goodness.
When the artisans finally mount these thousands of pre-dyed threads onto the hand loom and begin to weave, the colors must align perfectly at the microscopic intersections to reveal the pattern.
And if they don't?
If their initial mathematical calculations during the dyeing phase were off by even a fraction of an inch, the entire design turns into a blurry mess. Watching these patterns magically materialize on the loom as the threads cross is just mesmerizing.
It is layer upon layer of hidden depth, from the physics of the architecture to the mathematics of the textiles.
Truly.
So what does this all mean for you, as the listener, planning your next move? If you are someone who craves the genuine thrill of discovery, this entire geographic corridor offers an incredibly rare proposition.
It really does.
Whether you want to listen to the unhurried roar of a tiger echoing through a dry, deciduous forest, or test the acoustics of a 400-year-old diamond fortress, this specific trip provides an unrepeatable window of opportunity.
And that concept of a window is crucial here. Right now, Amrabad and the deeper cultural routes of Telangana are operating in that perfect transitional phase.
The sweet spot.
Exactly. They have the necessary access, the safety, and the profound wildlife density, but they have not yet been homogenized by global fame.
So if you are looking to take advantage of this, the ideal time to travel is between October and May.
Yes, definitely.
And if your primary focus is wildlife, you want to target February to April. As the dry season peaks and the forest sheds its leaves, the visibility is at its maximum, and the wildlife concentration around the Krishna River is phenomenal.
It represents a seamless, highly intelligent integration of South India's most pristine wildlife experience with one of its most culturally profound and historically significant urban destinations.
It definitely leaves you with a philosophical question to consider. Think about the scale of what we've discussed today.
Right.
If an engineering marvel that utilizes sand to defeat 800 years of earthquakes and a massive, quiet forest holding dozens of wild Bengal tigers can remain largely unnoticed by the mainstream tourism industry, what other massive natural or historical wonders are hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone curious enough to step off the beaten path and look?
It certainly suggests that the world map is far from fully explored. The most extraordinary experiences often exist just outside the radius of the heavy crowds.
If you decide to travel to Hyderabad or elsewhere in India, we have a recommendation. Five Senses Tours organizes tours across India, which are immersive cultural experiences. You can email contact@fivesensestours.com. Note 5 is written as a numeral in contact5sensestours.com or WhatsApp to +919 845 677 446.